Welcome back, everybody, to Final Fantasy XIV. Last time we left off, we had just started Endwalker, and we got the Sharlayan, so let's go ahead and take a visit to the city. After you, my friend. I'm more than content to follow your lead. That's curious, huh? So we got like an accompanying thing now. All set, then let us be on our way. Our first stop, amusingly enough, will be the last stand. It's a cafe on the west side of the harbor. Okay, so they kind of added in a new thing here. We already got the Etherite shard here, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, we can go ahead and go to the different things here and see what they talk about. This path leading out towards the sea is known as the Thaliak Stow, so named for the statue of Scarlet which stands at its end. As you know, the Sharlayan people prize the accumulation of wisdom above all else. Thus, when Thaliak was chosen as our patron deity, it was more a matter of pragmatism than belief, alignment of principles as it were. We may have honored him with a rather impressive sculpture, yes, but our faith is not so restrictive as that of, say, the Ishgarians. Individual Sharlayans can and do worship the divinities of their choosing. Now that this is slight, one can hardly forget the great statue of Thaliak. As a student at Baldessian, I was usually quartered on the Isle of Vale, but I would gaze upon the scholar's wise features every time I returned my ship to the city. Is that all they have to say, or...? Yeah, okay. Yep, there's a statue over there. It looks to be the only particular spot we need to be. Let's go ahead and see what goes on here. And here we are, the last stand. May have mentioned this before, but although our research into nutrition and food preparation is quite extensive, the average Sharlayan tends to regard seasoning flavor with a certain indifference. How can I put this? The food is, it's bland. As encapsulated by our infamous Arkan loaf, the prevailing sentiment towards cuisine is dietary value first and the taste of distance second. There was one pupil at the studium, however, who could stomach the school's insipid meals no longer, so he quit his lessons and poured all his savings into building a proper eatery. And so the last stand came to be. It is, as the name implies, the sole dedicated outpost of fine dining in Sharlayan, the one and only bastion of the culinary arts and isle of otherwise pedigree fare. I still recall their burger being hailed as one of the most impressive items on the menu, not that I've ever had the pleasure of eating one myself. Because you were a typical Sharlayan when it came to cheap and convenient, Raha. But surely Tataro has since taught you how to appreciate a well-prepared dish. We should all stop when time permits and sample the cafe's delights. Shall we press on? The stairs to the side of the cafe there will take us up to the Etherite Plaza. Kinda curious why everybody's like over here at the moment. Oh yeah, all these yells going on in the text. Oh, we made it. Let's go ahead and touch this first before anything else. And we're attuned. Okay. Unusual shape, isn't it? I assure you, however, that it's perfectly functioning Etherite. Remember to attune yourself before we move on. Now, being the diligent tour guide that I am, I should make mention of the Confluence, a research facility located on this very plaza. Its much vaunted discoveries are the reason Sharlayan stands at the forefront of teleportation technology. In deciphering the underlying principles of Allegan Etherites, let us understand and reconstruct what was essentially a lost art. And off we go to our next destination. Our path leads northeast to the Agoria, Sharlayan's largest marketplace. Yeah, it is an interesting Etherite. Well, we got a spot here we can take a look at. These little open-air bookstalls are so uniquely Sharlayan. I've always thought them a common sight until I visited other nations. You mind if I browse these shelves for a moment? There might be some hidden gems I've yet to read. Only a moment, how optimistic. Feel free to browse all you like, but it won't wait around for you. Perhaps I'll return here later then. Welcome to Agora, where you can find wares made in Sharlayan as well as a wide selection of imported goods. They're also used to sell questionable prototypes from various research institutes, but I think that practice has thankfully died out, for the most part. Otherwise, I could think of no better place to stock up on your big next adventure. Am I overselling it? Ahem. On a more serious note, the next stop on our tour is one which has particular relevance to our ultimate purpose here. We must head back to the Etherite Plaza, follow the path north, and climb the stairs up to that imposing building at the very top. Alrighty. We'll head back to the, Etherite then. Up this way, yep, that's a very big building. These little decorative features are typical Sharlayan architecture. Aside from the research wing, our headquarters in the Isle of Vale was rather simple and rustic by comparison. This is the Nymphonium, an area dedicated to the blessings of water. For Sharlayans, water presents more than a life-sustaining liquid. It is a reminder of the great flood which precipitated the birth of our nation. It is a symbol of the knowledge which flows from Thaliak's divine Ewer. This is the reason you see an abundance of fountains throughout the city, and a prosperity for utilizing water as a decorative feature in our architecture. Somebody decided to have a fall. Oh, we got another Etherite shard up here. I'll make sure to grab that one. Alright, got 2 of them so far. This grand structure before you is the Rostra. The name refers to the original public platform erected here, upon which a forum of elected representatives would deliver orisons and debate policy. Although the stage has since evolved into council chambers, the nature of the forum and the duties of its members remain largely unchanged. Am I boring you, Raha? You seem awfully distracted. My apologies. From here, one can see the entire city spread out below. The vista put me in mind of my rival the First. Those who have gathered at the Crystal Tower asked me how they might go about building a new home. Actually, my answers were all inspired by my knowledge of the finest settlement I could think of, the great city of Sharlayan. And bit by bit, those few buildings grew into a town, a community, the Crystarium. I can almost see its echo. I see. Feel free to come up here whenever you wish. I don't think the councilors were objected to simply enjoying the view. Such memories should be treasured. For now, however, the tour must go on. Our spectacle of sightseeing concludes with the fitly named Journey's End. Walk down the stairs to the east and continue straight ahead. Assuming these stairs, right? Yep, Journey's End. We've arrived at Journey's End. History tells us that this was where those who put ashore of Archon Nunukrept built their first homes. In the present day, it serves as the residential district for most important officials in the oldest Sharlayan families. You'll see that one mansion is clearly larger than its neighbors. The estate belongs to our friends from House Levanor. All things considered, we should probably keep our distance for the time being. With that, we bring our little Sharlayan tour to a close. I hope it has proven to be an entertaining and enlightening experience. Now, shall we head directly to the Baldessian Annex? You remember the way, don't you, Raha? Let me think. We head down towards the harbor, across the bridge to our right, then follow the path below the Etherite Plaza? Correct. After you, Narn. Seems like there's definitely something going on over there. Oh, there's another Ethernet shard over here. Grab that one. Down this way, I assume. Oh, we have another blue circle coming up ahead. Right, we crossed this bridge here, as I recall. Stick to the path and be careful not to end up back in the Etherite Plaza. Sharlayan is full of educational and research institutions, but there are still professors who prefer to establish their own private practices. Not that I ever attended the exclusive schools they run in these residences. Perhaps the twins can tell you more about them. We head down here, from what I understand at least. And then this way? Yep, it looks like we're at the right spot. Oh, another Ethernet shard. Gotta grab that one. As the joyous look on Raha's face has undoubtedly informed you, this is the Baldessian Annex. If you continue up the hill, you arrive at the doorstep of Phenomenon. I think we've explored enough for one day. We can take you there another time. Inside with you, then. I'm back, and I brought Narn and Raha with me. Yeah, you were right about the ship, then. Hello, Raha. It's nice to see you again. And it's a pleasure to finally meet you, Narn. I've heard many a tale of your exploits. Ojika Shunijika. It's been an age. Let me introduce Ojika Shunijika, Administration Officer for the students at Baldessian. He oversees the day-to-day business of the Annex. The Champion of Orzia has featured prominently in Kron Graha's report, so for me this is akin to seeing a fabled hero come to life. It's an honor to make your acquaintance. This place is like a second home for the students. The Isle of Val served as our main headquarters, of course, but we often had occasion to visit Sharlayan. We had to make use of the city's research facilities, attend conferences, or procure supplies from distant shores. An index here was built to provide lodgings for our members while we engage in such activities. Ever since our former headquarters, along with the isle itself, vanished, the Annex has served as our base of operations. And yet it feels so empty. With so many lost to us, our organization is a shell of its former self. The day will come when we will see the students rise again. But first, we must ensure that Telephora fail. Through that door on the left there is the main hall. We can discuss our options moving forward. Once everyone arrives, that is, you'll probably have time to rest before our discussions begin in earnest. I've had private quarters prepared for you in the Andron, so please, feel free to make yourself at home. Ah, the nap room's perfect for an afternoon doze. Oh, I didn't mean to give you the wrong impression. The chambers are quite well appointed. Far more so than some cheap roadside inn, you may be assured. It was simply that we were often so busy with research or exhausted from journeys abroad that we'd slip into the Andron just to steal a few winks. Thus they became known amongst the students as nap rooms, even if there are many such naps might last well into the following morning. Say the word, I'll be happy to show you to your chamber. Hopefully the others won't be too long in coming. I'll wait for you all in the main hall. Yeah, this place is definitely underload. Oh, wow. Alright, let's go ahead on in. Alright. Feeling refreshed and alert, our colleagues should be wandering in soon, so I suggest we stay here and wait for them to join us.
Pray forgive me. I was delayed.
It's fine, Moriange. We're all here now.
Let's get down to business then, shall we? Come what may, we must prevent the Telophoroid's plans from coming to fruition. At present, I see two paths for gathering the information which may aid us in achieving that goal. The first involves an investigation into the change which has come over Sharlayan, not to mention the recent inscrutable behavior of the Forum. As most of you know, the 99 members of the Forum are elected from the general populace. This alone guarantees a plethora of opinion with regards to foreign policy. The bibliotheques, for example, are a group of conservatives which would have Sharlayan focus on recording history, while remaining entirely uninvolved in the making of it. And at the other extreme, we have advocates for proactive diplomacy and direct intervention. My grandfather Galef was one such member, as was Archon Louisois. Yet despite our diverse factions and philosophies, the recent vote to deny Eorzea's request for assistance was unanimous. Even more concerning was the fact that many cited other, more pressing duties as justification for their recalcitrance.
Fortuno's refusal in Gridania had those same undertones. 'Twas as if, having stared unblinking into the face of impending doom, he had simply turned away to pursue something more important. But what could that possibly be?
A mystery indeed, and one which I ask for your help to solve. Our future may depend on it. As for our second potential path, it concerns a request made directly to the students of Baldessian. Our organization was founded primarily to study strange and unexplained phenomena the world over. Mysterious relics and ruins, arcane disturbances, and so forth. Compared to our more isolationist Sharlayan colleagues, we have strong connections overseas, namely with scholars and academics who share our passion for the unknown. The request in question comes from one such acquaintance, Nadana, an alchemist residing in distant Thavnair. Her missive describes the sudden appearance of a tower, and the subsequent summoning of what I can only assume is a lunar primal. In response to this threat, the satrap of Radzat Han, the individual who governs the city-state, has instructed the alchemists to find a means to deal with the spire.
The artisans of that land are heirs to an ancient tradition, one rather unlike that of their Uldan counterparts. It is possible, nay, probable, that they have gleaned truths unattainable by Eorzea or her Far Eastern allies.
They do, in fact, appear to have a strategy in mind, though it will require further research. To that end, they have requested an introduction to a capable warrior shielded by the blessing of light.
Assuming we divide our forces to pursue both of Kral's lines of inquiry, and having you join the group heading to Thavnair would seem the obvious choice. But the investigation in Sharlayan is of vital importance as well. Equal, I think, to the Thavnarian one, given that the fate of the world may hinge on the results of both.
Yes, it is quite the quandary. Though it is a great imposition and an altogether too common one, our efforts would be more likely to succeed were you to lead the charge on both fronts. You are indeed our champion. As to which task to tackle first, we will defer to your decision. Let us next decide how everyone else might best be assigned. As for myself, I shall continue what I've begun in Sharlayan. I should also like to steal the services of an Archon or two.
And thereby gain access to a greater range of reading material. I will help with that.
Allow me to offer my assistance. I have some small amount of experience in the field of research.
Alize and I would also like to help, if you would have us.
Anything to understand even a fraction of what our father and the Forum might be thinking.
Of course, the more the merrier.
Right. The rest of us will make the journey to Thavnair. Thoughts? Objections?
I passed through Thavnair on my way to infiltrate the Empire, and though I'm not qualified to give a guided tour, I did gain a sense of where things lie.
I'll be happy to have you along then. So for this group, it will be you, me, and Urianger.
Give me a moment afterwards, and I'll supply you with all the details of Nadana's request. Consider this hall our rendezvous point once our respective tasks are complete. May our investigations prove fruitful.
Alright, we got that complete. Alright, so we have the usual split path at the beginning of an expansion. It's been like this for every single expansion. So we have one that will keep us here in Sharlayan, and then we have one that will take us to a new area entirely. And I'm kind of thinking I'll probably stay here in Sharlayan first. Though I kind of imagine something big's probably gonna happen over at Razahan, I'm assuming. Let's go ahead and take a look at our stuff here and see what we got. I'm assuming what we got here is gonna be better than what we have, so. Yeah, it is, okay. That's definitely an interesting style. We'll just go with that for now, I guess, because we'll definitely be getting the pieces here over time. Alright, let's see if they have any for us right off the bat. Yeah, we'd get footgear for this, and then we get what for this, I'm assuming. Okay, so I think they're probably wanting us to do Sharlayan first anyways, if they're giving us armor on one set and not on the other, so we'll go ahead and go with Sharlayan first. And unsettling change has come over Sharlayan, but together we will define the underlying cause for the Forum's calliness. As I mentioned before, however, questioning the Councillors directly is a fruitless endeavor. They seem to have already come to a consensus as to what or how little they are willing to divulge. Which is why I began scouring Sharlayan's archive of historical records for any hint of a connection to the final days. Suffice to say, the progress has been slow. There are only so many dusty pages one can skim in a day. But now that I have this band of willing reinforcements, the search should proceed all the swifter. Let's reconvene outside Nomorion, shall we? Exit the annex to the right, and you'll find the archives on the western edge of the woods. Alright. And we head off to the right, I think they said, right? According to the map, it looks like it's right. We also should be on the lookout for any side quests that will give us more armor pieces. Because sometimes that's the thing as well. I'm assuming it's over this way. My directions were easy to follow, enough to follow, I hope. In any case, you stand out before the doors of Numenor, Sharlayan's greatest collection of books and tomes. This building is actually only an entrance, and one of many at that, for the archives of Numenor extend deep beneath the surface like the roots of a tree. The vast halls of the great Google Library could pale in comparison to the Numenor's endless maze of subterranean chambers. Any citizen of Sharlayan is free to enter and pursue its shelves, while most of the shelves. Only Archons are afforded access to certain restricted vaults. I've dispatched Ustola and Raha to investigate those. Meanwhile, LSA and Alphanon will help me continue my search through the stacks open to the general public. Your status presents more of a problem. As a non-citizen, you're only permitted to browse the first floor here at the entrance, and even so, there should be a number of books which touch upon Sharlayan history or foreign policy. Your task will be to find and study the relevant publications. I promise you, working knowledge of those subjects will make it easier to spot the sort of clues we're looking for. Let us be about it, shall we? Tell the others to meet us at the stone benches over there once they've found some promising tomes. Happy reading. Alrighty. Oh, let's see. Long, long ago on an island in the Northern Sea, there lived a Rogonian man by the name of Nudkaref. Nudkaref was a study of astrology, and he divined the flood of terrifying proportions would soon sweep over the lands of Urzia. So it was he who built a gigantic ship, assembled a crew, and set sail for that imperiled realm. The flood arrived as foretold, and to their horror, the strangely churning waters drove the people towards the ocean. It was there, however, that Nudkaref's crew hauled them aboard his ark. But the danger had not passed. A towering wave approached, threatening to smash the vessels to pieces. With only moments to spare, Nudkaref wove a mighty spell of teleportation, and shifted the entire ship to the safety atop Apatha's spine. Refugees from the surrounding regions huddled there alongside them, but it was not long before disputes over the dwindling supply of food led to violence and bloodshed. Stunned by the sight, Nudkaref grabbed to him his crew and his grateful passengers, and abandoned the ark to those reddened peaks. They journeyed to the coast, where they built a new ship, intent upon returning to the northern seas. They landed on the beach of an island and settled upon that very spot. The settlement prospered and grew, and in time it became the city of Sharlayan we lived in to this day. Many years ago, on the bank of Thaliak in the Dravian hinterlands, a Sharlayan colony once thrived. The settlement was originally established as a mere battle post to study ethereal sea in the year 1311 of the 6th Astral Era. Scholars dispatched to Orzia found the facilities wanting, and their demands encouraged a gradual expansion in instructions and services. As rumors spread of a growing community of academics, the area was further inundated with Orzian students hoping to share in the renowned wisdom of the Sharlayans. 50 years later, the forum passed a motion to recognize what had become a flourishing town as an official Sharlayan colony. Orzian residents took to calling the colony itself Sharlayan, which led to no small amount of confusion when discussions turned to the subject of the motherland. In response, some Sharlayan inhabitants, pressed for a name, would simply refer to it as the Emporium. Following the Great Exodus, however, goblins and treasure hunters claimed for themselves a corner of the abandoned colony and gave it another name, Eldershire. Okay, it doesn't seem to have anything particular for us, but we've been to Eldershire back in Heaven's Ward. Time-worn tomb. Let's take a look at that, shall we? During the case of the Sixth Emerald Calamity, Archon Nukueth, founder of Sharlayan, bore witness to the madness and savagery of men brought to the brink of despair. Upon raising a settlement on an island in the northern Empty, he'd instruct his people thus: "Renounce the ways of war and pursue enlightenment through knowledge and reason." The Sharlayans took to heart the words of their savior, and thenceforth served as stewards of wisdom. Upon a foundation of accumulated learning, they built a homeland unlike any other, a nation born from strengths of mind rather than tricks of arms. With knowledge of economics came shrewd trading. With knowledge of agriculture came bountiful crops. Engineering brought wells and sewers, ending squabbles over water. Wealth of expertise could be bartered with wealth and coin. And the more their wisdom spread throughout the world, the more mankind as a whole would thrive. So it was no matter of the trials and tribulations of the age, the citizens of Sharlayan would live by their founders' teachings. For the sake of a better tomorrow, for the sake of a brighter star, they would eschew the tools of war and with their knowledge deliver the world. Okay, that one counted. My beloved seekers of knowledge, have you ever put learning before your health and neglected to feed your fester bodies you should? I too once engaged in such foolish practices, but one night engrossed in philosophy study I had an epiphany. For all the world's mysteries that drive us to reckless abandon, we have so few years of life in which to achieve our goals. Thus do I share with you this mantra: I'm forever 20 years summers less young. The number itself is unimportant. You could be 19 or 23 or 40. Whatever age you or discover this manual, it will be the age you aspire to remain. Though mindful, healthy living will extend the time available to spend upon your chosen research, another day, another moon, another summer to grasp the truths you pursue. In the pages that follow, we explore the secrets of maintaining one's physical condition from a biological, etherological, and arcane viewpoint. Okay, that's definitely not the right book. Have you ever gazed at the skies above and contemplated the mysteries contained within? I speak not of shifting cloud patterns with the vastness beyond the sun and the twinkling tapestry of the night. Some think the dome above us is to be infinite space, yet amongst the leading thinkers of my age, one scholar's depiction of the boundless sea of stars has firmly taken root. Last, this heavenly sea remains an unreachable, unknowable destination. There are few indeed who can explain in satisfying detail why our own stars believe to revolve around the sun. It was the technologists of Thaliak who came closest to understanding the laws which govern the starry abyss. It was they who launched Dalamad and sought to expand beyond our earthbound existence. Having read their ancient ambitions, I wonder, has your interest in this field of study waxed or waned? What if I were to tell you that internal constellations were arranged differently in the distant past? That their positions continue to shift among almost imperceptibly but measurably as we journey to the future? Would it shock you to learn that the stars drift further and further apart and may indeed do so forever? Are you eager to learn more? Okay, it's not this one either. In the years which followed the following Sharlayan, civic policy and other matters of import were decided at the XIV, public forum at which every citizen was eligible to speak. As the city's population grew, however, this forum became increasingly impractical. A larger number of participants gave rise to ever longer debates, resulting in significant delays of vital resolutions. Various measures were introduced in an attempt to curtail protracted discussions, but in the year 201 of the 6th Astral Era, it was ultimately decreed that Sharlayan would transition to a new form of government. The nation would now be led by a body of 99 members, citizens chosen from amongst their peers by means of a nationwide vote. Thus was the form as we know it today conceived and created. Alright, we figured it out. Or at least have a little bit better understanding of stuff. Sorry, were you waiting long? I want to make sure I borrowed at least a few promising volumes. Alpha Node and Kryl should be along shortly. I was delayed in similar fashion. As far as I could see, no titles in the Archon stacks mention the final day specifically. So we have no choice but to start with the tangible, relevant tombs, if there are even that. At present, this plan is to skim through as quickly as we dare and share our discoveries as we make them. It would be nice to invite everyone to the estate, plenty of comfortable places to read and ready supply of hot tea. Oh, I was always quite fond of reading outside. But it's not about the little pleasures, is it? You missed your home. It's been difficult. After arrival, we managed to speak with one of the family servants and ask how things were. It seems our dear father instructed the staff that even if Nalfonald and I were to return to Sharlayan, we were not to be allowed access across the threshold. Harsh measure indeed. I hope that your efforts to understand his position and that of the Forum will indeed lead to a reconciliation. We'll mend this rift one day, I'm certain of it. And what of you, Graha? Have you been to visit your family, or do they not live here in the city? Ah, well, my situation is also somewhat complicated. I was raised in Sharlayan, yes, but I was born rather further away. In the southern seas of Isilbar, in fact. For generations, my people have dwelt in Kurvos, the coastal region opposite the Isle of the Vonar. The Alligans founded a city in the fertile land, and by ship brought in the subjugated tribes of the Migotit to serve as laborers. Of course, the massive earthquakes of the Fourth Umbral Calamity brought an end to the Empire's reign. When the Fifth Calamity froze the sea solid, many of my tribes still living in Kurvos braved the journey back to Orzia. My ancestors, however, chose to remain, that they might prevent the remnants of Alligan technology from being misused. Isn't Kurvos under Garlanian rule? For the past 50 years, yes, some semblance of local culture remains, as is the case for most Imperial provinces. But Garlemald renamed the region Locus Omnius. When I was a boy, a nearby town came under the jurisdiction of an illustrious Imperial family, the nobles of House Darnius. House Darnius demonstrating a singular interest in Alligan civilization, so my tribe was forced to consider a plan of action. For some time already, voices have been raised in favor of banning our ancient customs. After all, the Alligan Eye no longer passed to our eldest children as reliably as it once had. Fear of discovery eventually tipped the scales, and the decision was made to bury our ties to knowledge and traditions of Allag. As the last child born of Allag and I was given under custody of friends and the students of Baldessian, who had me registered as a Sharlayan citizen. I never even considered, forgive me, it was an unkind question. Even Thancred was taken in by Archon Louisois, was he not? Stories of adopted waifs and rescued orphans are more common among Sharlayans than you might think. Yet regardless of our origins, we are all provided with equal opportunity to learn. With sufficient perspicuity, we outsiders can even earn the vaunted title of Archon. That's exactly why I have such love for this country, and why I wish it to remain a nation of which its citizens can be proud. Hear, hear, another good reason to get to the bottom of the Forum's stubbornness, aside from the trifling matter of our impending doom. Excuse us while we try to make some headway into these books, Narn. More company should be arriving at any moment now. Just gotta wait again, I guess, huh? We've returned with our selections. Though I must say the pickings were quite some indeed. Mistress Quell has already flicked through every history book devoted to disasters. More than a few which barely made mention of them. As such, we'll be looking into research papers on the Umbral calamities, as well as articles written by prominent forum members. Perhaps the knowledge of the final days comes from an unexpected source. Speaking of which, might I ask you a few questions related to the final days? I'm the only one here who didn't witness the events of Amarat firsthand, and fear I may be overlooking critical details. My thanks. Now, where to begin? First things first, what kind of phenomenon did the ancients encounter as the final days drew nigh? A complete destabilization of creation magics. Yes, the unfolding catastrophe wrought havoc on all manner of life. The chaos extended to the ancients themselves, causing the powers of creation to spiral out of control. Fear and despair manifest in terrible, tangible fashion. Meteors raining from the sky, fire erupting from the ground, indescribable abominations prowling the streets. Though more or less aligns with my understanding, if only the arts of creation had survived until the present day, I may have had something substantial to analyze. To the best of our knowledge, however, these techniques were not preserved or passed on. These scroll summarized that the closest known magics that have the summoning rituals promulgated by the Asians. Were there aught else of note which herald the approach of the final days? They say it began with a keening sound from the lane itself. Ah yes, the Amarats spoke of it, didn't they? We never did hear the sound ourselves, of course, thrust as we were into the midst of the madness. But it seems that each and every one of the catastrophes was preceded by this ominous noise. Eventually it resounded all across the star, and not even Amarat was spared. So the ground was crying out, you say? To be considered the harboring of doom, it must have been quite distinctive. Probably quite loud. I'll have to speak of one of Nomaran's memoirs, and ask if any books which make mention of such a sound. Last but not least, would you describe how the ancients sought to quell this unprecedented calamity? What definite action did they take? They summoned Zodiac. Yes, of Illibius serving his heart, so many gave themselves in sacrifice to bring him into being. We don't know exactly how Zodiac brought salvation to the star, only that by his godlike will were the laws of nature set aright. Then, once the balance was redressed, the ancients offered up a further sacrifice to heal the ravages of the final days. Life sprouted anew, and it was those fledgling souls that intended to render onto Zodarak, a trade that would have allowed them to resurrect the shades of loved ones absorbed by the primal. Or might have, had Venet and her fellows not manifested their opposition in the form of Halalan. Thank you, both of you, for the detailed review. I feel much more confident now in my understanding of events. With all that freshly in mind, it does bring wonder what the Telephori truly mean when they speak of bringing back the final days. We've seen what they're doing with those towers of theirs, is forcing people to summon primals as a kind of catalyst. Are they attempting to mirror the conditions caused by the unstable creation magics? Or are they simply using the final days as a figure of speech, a convenient metaphor for the skill of destruction they plan to unleash? But this is all just pointless conjecture at this stage. Let's return to our attention to the forum, shall we? We should keep an eye out for Stola, but 'tis time we began studying these research papers. One more time. Well, I just looked at my HP and I realized that's very much a number crunch. I went from over 100k to down to, like, less than 50k. I'm the last, am I? Well, my extended search of the Archon stacks produced 1 or 2 possibly useful books. But I wouldn't get your hopes up. If you recall, Yarn J learned of the source's reflections from the Garen oracles. For its potential to cause panic and confusion, that tome was deemed Apocrypha and sealed away in the Great Global Library. There's even less likely the knowledge of that unsundered world, not to mention the horrors of the final days, to be left sitting on a shelf for any curious scholar to find. Stands to reason then that my colleagues, be they Archons or Counselors, should be forced to be largely ignorant of the subject. Yet, when you confronted Master Forerlant with knowledge of the Tephori and their Medicians, he scoffed at the suggestions that they posed a threat. He seemed adamant that the Forum would know if the final days were truly upon us. Which only supports the conclusion that whatever privileged wisdom is guiding the Forum's behavior is being kept secret from the rest of the nation. Not that I mean to excuse myself from reading duty. Whether they contain mention of the final days or no, these books could hold something of value. You weren't thinking of leaving, were you? There's plenty of work for everyone. Labor for what feels like an age as he stole his research assistant. Oh dear, you look exhausted, but what about your studies? Were you able to find any books on the subjects I mentioned? The day was well spent. Should you wish to read them again, a man at the reference desk will point you in the right direction. For the moment, though, I suggest you take a well-deserved rest. You might be occupied with our research for quite some time. Alright. We get footgear this time. Put those on, there we go. But yeah, we're down to 43,000 HP. We were at like 160 before this expansion. This is probably a good stopping point for now. I'll go ahead and pick up in the next video. And we'll continue our going on in Sharlayan for the moment.